This is the Cash Value Solutions Podcast, where your hosts, Jason Pohlmeyer and Kyle Mann, shed light on little-known money truths to help you take control of your financial future and become your own banker. Subscribe, rate, and review the show, and check us out at cashvaluesolutions.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast this week. What have we got on the agenda today, Kyle?
Well, today we're going to be talking about when and how to get started with IBC.
Okay, what do you have for us?
Well, the easiest way to get started with IBC is if you just have a pile of cash sitting in your bank account that's earning you 0.1% interest, and you're looking for a place to move it to where that money can start working for you. Or the other way, and I'm not recommending you should do this. You need to look into it on your own. You need to talk to your accountant about it. This is not legal advice. But with all the coronavirus stuff they've passed this year, it is possible to tap into your qualified plans and take money out of there in 2020 penalty free. So that's something to also think about as well.
Yeah, and I would just add, if you guys are contributing to qualified plans, but that doesn't really line up with your goals of what you're trying to do. Say you're a farmer and you have a huge need for an operating budget, and you've been putting money into a IRA or something like that, it can make sense to, and we'd have to look at your situation, but you may not want to keep directing dollars to that qualified plan. Maybe you want to start redirecting those dollars to an IBC policy where you have high liquidity and control of your money.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of the times, if you're a farmer or some other type of business owner, a lot of your capital is locked in to your business, your farm, your ranch.
Inventory.
Yes. So it's not always super easy just to see how to get started.
Right. And that's what we're here for, to help you see, what's the right size of policy to start with. And can I start right now?
Yeah. And I mean, we take a look at cash flows and see, what's safe to start with. And we look at it from a conservative view as well. It's not like, let's try to dump as much money as possible right away.
I just add, you guys aren't going to just from day one create the policy that you need to finance your entire lives, right? I mean, this is a system of policies, and you just got to start where you're at. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, this is why we also talk about why long-term thinking is so important.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to start somewhere. And I would just add, you have to get started at some point. And, so it can be easy to make excuses. Well, I got 2 tractor payments left to make. And after that, I'll go ahead and I'll get started on this. But the problem with that thinking is, well, in 2 years, your tractor will be paid off, but maybe you're going to need a new head for your combine, a draper head or something like that, or a new corn head, There's always going to be expenses in your life that's telling you, well, no, don't start right now. We can start in a couple years. That isn't the best line of thinking, to do this.
Yeah, it could be, I got to buy bulls this year, and then I'm having a kid next year, and, it's never-ending stuff. So if you want to do it, you need to sit down, and there's always a way to do something if you want to do it bad enough.
Absolutely, and it's important to remember you have access to this money. Now, maybe it does in your situation, and maybe it doesn't make sense to start the policy right away. We can talk about that, but don't just think, I have all these expenses coming up in my life or that I'm already committed to, and this is off the table for me, because that's oftentimes not the actual case.
Yeah. When I first started my policy, the first year, I took a policy loan. That year, used it to cover some operating expense and then paid it back at the end of the year. I mean, that's the beauty of the system. As you're capitalizing your system, you can also use the money, and that does not hurt the capitalization period.
Yeah, and can I just ask you a question, Kyle? You don't have to tell the listeners the size of the policy that you started or anything like that, but would you have been comfortable starting a plan where you lose control of your money and putting as much money into it as you did as with your IBC policy?
Absolutely not. No, I mean,
Right. And I mean, I'm just trying to make the point that, hey, this system is very versatile. You have the ability to borrow from it or withdraw if that's what you want to do. But, your money isn't tied up to the point where you don't have access.
yeah, and I think it's smart to start conservatively and start where you're comfortable, just the first policy. But from everybody who I know who has policies, they look back a year later, especially even after like maybe 10 years later, and like, man, I wish I would have went bigger.
Absolutely. And I think you and I are both like, we're going to be purchasing more policies, and my oldest policy is about 19 months or so old, I think, right now. But, you can already see the need. Like, I have more need for finance than what these policies are going to afford me. So once you can afford to pay the premium on the new policy, you start the new policy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, to get back to where we were, it can also be common for people to like IBC, and they're ready to get started, but they go through underwriting, and turns out they aren't as healthy as they thought they were. So what's the problem in that thinking, Kyle?
Well, I mean, so you might not get the top health rating, which that affects your cost of insurance. But if your health, it's worth it to get started, because if your health improves, if it's something that you expect to get over and then become healthier, like, the insurance company will upgrade your rating depending on if your health is improving.
Yeah, if you go through underwriting again, you can improve your health rating. And you don't have to worry about going any lower, because that floor is locked in.
Mm-hmm. And maybe this also goes for tobacco users. Like, well, I use tobacco, I need to quit before I start a policy. Well, you could start a policy now. Yes, your cost of insurance is higher, but most companies, it depends on the company. It's somewhere between 2 and 5 years, I think, is the range between the companies that I know of. 2 and 5 years, and then you can become non-tobacco after you quit. So you can at least get started, and then they will move you up to a non-tobacco rating.
Absolutely. And you don't know, okay, so you could say, well, didn't get what I wanted. I'm going to wait 2 years or 5 years or whatever, it comes up as, and then I'm going to try this again, We don't even know if you're going to be insurable in the future, right?
Yeah.
Odds are, if you've had a bad health event or something happen to you, that could come back again, And so
get worse.
Taking what's offered to you is very important. And like Kyle said, yeah, it could get worse too. So take what you're given. It can always be improved in the future if your health improves.
Yeah, and there could also be a misunderstanding or something with the underwriter, and that's also what we're here for. And so if there's something you don't agree with necessarily that you see, we talk to the insurance companies so we can also work to get that figured out too.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you, Kyle. So, okay, we went through some of these points. I think we should move on to why you may not want to get started right away. What some potential pitfalls are in front of people.
Yeah, so I know it sounds like that we said, oh, get started no matter what. Well, that's not the case here. If you have some bad consumer debt, whether that's, credit card debt, lots of student loans, just stuff along that line, it may make more sense to pay that off before you get started with IBC.
Yeah, if you've got, I'll just use credit card here, for example, because it's top of mind. If you have credit card debt and you have a history of not doing a good job of paying off that monthly statement and building up, getting close to your limit on your credit card, that's probably a good sign of we got a problem here. You need to fix that line of thinking before you implement IBC in your life, right, Kyle?
Yeah, and with the interest rates that credit cards charge, which anywhere from 15 to 25, maybe more %, that debt needs to be handled as quickly as possible.
Yeah, make a plan. If you can get it paid off in 6 months or 12 months or 2 years, whatever it is for you, not only have you taken care of that debt, which is more important than starting this policy at this point in time, you've also created good habits for yourself for the future with your IBC policy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
The next reason I would say maybe we need to wait or maybe not do a policy is if you're barely making ends meet. If you have no cash flow coming in, you're in the negative. I mean, we can't start a policy with that. I mean, you got to have some positive cash flow to get started.
you have to capitalize the policy to get started. I mean, that takes paying premium.
Exactly.
And, so say you're barely making ends meet, maybe that's because of lifestyle, maybe there can be some things done to free up some cash flow there. But we're just talking about if in that specific time when you're ready to get started, you have no cash flow. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to have money to pay a premium. So
Yeah.
if you're barely making ends meet, maybe there's something that can be done, but you aren't ready to start yet.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go on with the next one here too. It's IBC is a long-term play, and you shouldn't come into this with the thought of, well, I'm going to do this for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, and then I have some type of deal that comes up, and I'm getting out of this, and I'm going to go and end my IBC policy. Right? This is a long-term play from the very beginning.
Yeah. I mean, these things get better and better over time, which is what we talk about. Why would you ever want to quit paying? If you don't plan to pay in for as long as possible, this is not what you want to do.
Yeah, that would definitely be a sign to us of huge red flag going up that no, you're not a good candidate for IBC policy unless something shifts in your mindset, right?
Yeah.
So I think another point here to make is we've talked with several people, and so that they realize that, yes, IBC is a good thing. I want to do this. But they just aren't quite there with the cash flow, or they aren't quite ready to commit to starting a policy. It is extremely important for you guys to have life insurance, because you have no idea what could happen tomorrow, tonight, and when you'll have a need for life insurance. So maybe if you aren't quite ready to start the IBC policy, it makes sense to do convertible term, okay? Mm-hmm. And do you want to explain that to the listeners, Kyle?
Yeah, so convertible term, it's term insurance, but it allows you the ability to convert it to whole life at the health rating that you are right then. And that doesn't mean you can't improve it. If you don't get the top health rating, if your health improves and you decide you want to convert to whole life, they will upgrade your health rating at any time.
Exactly. And once you do that, though, you're guaranteeing to, take care of your spouse or business partner or whoever it is in your life, right, that you have a need for life insurance for. And this is kind of for husbands and wives to think about. A lot of people will say, well, it's more important to have more life insurance or only life insurance on the breadwinner in the family. But the flaw in that thinking is, if your spouse, if you guys have kids and you're taking care of them, even if your spouse is still working, if they would pass away, there's still going to be a need to take care of those kids and all those daily chores. And that's probably going to affect the breadwinner's ability to earn income in the future.
Well, sure. And just the time of mourning as well. I mean,
you're
absolutely not going to be okay for a while, if something that catastrophic happens.
That's an excellent point too. So,
and the other point I would make is don't put your family in the position where they got to post on GoFundMe to help them with expenses because you weren't responsible enough to get some coverage.
Convertible term is unbelievably affordable. I mean, for somebody of my age and health, I mean, I could probably get $500,000 of coverage for less than $500 a year for a 10-year policy or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just pulled that off the top of my head. I'm not quoting something to anybody. So it's not hard for you guys to get started with that. And even though it's easy to think, no, that isn't going to happen to me, I would just caution you that nobody ever thinks it's that time, so it's better to play safe.
Totally agree there.
So anything else that you would like to add to this podcast, Kyle?
I think we've got this fully covered.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll talk to you next week.
This was the Cash Value Solutions Podcast. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Check us out at cashvaluesolutions.com. And don't forget to tune in next week.